Welcome to STEMinist Talk. Our deep dive today is highlighting, those inspiring stories of women in science who totally expanded our understanding of the world.
Absolutely. And we have an incredible story today.
We really do. So to kick things off, I want you to imagine standing in pitch black darkness.
Okay, that already sounds terrifying.
Right? You are like 1,250 feet beneath the Pacific Ocean. You're encased in this heavy magnesium armor suit, and all around you are glowing blue rings of bioluminescent life.
Which honestly sounds like total science fiction, but, that was just a normal Tuesday in 1979 for Dr. Sylvia Earle.
Exactly. The legendary marine biologist, affectionately known as her Deepness.
Yeah, that nickname is just so good.
It really is. And I always think of this specific untethered deep sea walk as basically the oceanic equivalent of a spacewalk. I mean, the absolute physical and psychological courage required to just unclip your tether in the abyss is mind-blowing.
Oh, for sure. But, what's crazy is that the abyss might have actually been less intimidating than the systemic barriers she faced back on the surface.
Right, because before she could make history at those depths, she had to fight just to get her fins wet in academia.
Yeah, she earned her PhD in botany from Duke. But she didn't just stay in a lab looking at slides. She took early STU gear and actually cataloged over 20,000 algae specimens.
Wait, 20,000? That is a massive amount of manual field work.
It really is. And it was a completely revolutionary methodology at the time. I mean, before SQBA, botanists basically just dragged nets from boats and studied these dead, mangled algae clumps on the deck.
Right, which tells you almost nothing about the actual ecosystem.
Exactly. So she used diving gear to study how algae lived and interacted in its environment. She essentially weaponized Sesquiba to turn botany, which was historically deemed a safe domestic science for women, into this rigorous, physically demanding field research.
Which is incredible, but I'm trying to wrap my head around the timeline here. She had this brilliant academic track record and thousands of dive hours, so why does the historical archive show her constantly being sidelined?
Well, unfortunately, the pushback was intense. She was actually denied a university research position because the faculty just assumed she would, quote, get married and have babies.
Ugh, that is so frustrating to hear.
Yeah, and it gets worse. She was barred from leading surface ship expeditions because organizers thought it was inappropriate for a woman to lead a ship full of men.
Wow. Okay, so if they absolutely will not let her command a surface ship, what does she even do next?
Well, she decides to literally go under them.
I love that.
Yeah, so in 1969, she applied for Tektite I, which was this underwater habitat project. She had way more dive hours than anyone else applying, but she was rejected.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
Because she was a woman.
Spot on. The military organizers just couldn't cope with the logistics of a mixed-gender crew living together in an underwater capsule.
Right, because that is obviously the biggest danger 50 feet underwater.
Right, exactly. But the real triumph comes the very next year in 1970 with Tektite II. She leads an all-female team, and they live 50 feet underwater for 2 whole weeks.
Okay, but this is the part of the source material that genuinely just exasperates me.
The media coverage.
Yes, the media framing. She is a PhD scientist with thousands of hours underwater, doing incredible research where you don't even have to waste time decompressing every day. And the headlines literally read, Beacon Hill housewife to lead team of female aquanauts. A housewife.
It perfectly captures how incredibly uncomfortable society was with female scientific authority back then. But, despite those headlines, Tektite Sika completely shattered the myth that women couldn't handle extreme, isolated environments.
It proved her undeniable competence on a global stage.
Absolutely. And she built an incredible legacy from there. Over 7,000 hours underwater and becoming the first female chief scientist at NOAA.
And she eventually launched Mission Blue and those Hope Spots, right?
Yes, which is such a brilliant concept. She pitched the idea that just like we have national parks on land, we need designated, legally protected marine zones.
To let the ocean recover without human interference. That makes perfect sense. And, her 7,000 plus hours underwater really proved that the history of oceanography is intrinsically tied to female persistence.
It really is. The history of science is also the history of women whose work expanded how we understand the world.
Totally. Which is exactly why we want to tell you, the listener, directly, that young people, and especially girls and young women, absolutely belong in STEM.
Yes.